This changes everything for gun owners. Across the country, from California to New York, a legal earthquake just shook the foundations of every gun law in America. In a stunning 9-0 decision, the Supreme Court didn't just protect U.S. gun makers, it delivered a statement that may end assault weapon bans forever. Buried in this ruling is a sentence so powerful, so legally undeniable, it could reshape the Second Amendment fight for decades to come. And while mainstream media stays silent, we're not letting this moment go unnoticed. Welcome to Survival Lawline, the one place where the truth about your rights is front and center. If you believe the Constitution doesn't stop at your state line, subscribe now and join the fight to stay informed, protected, and prepared. Chapter 1. The Lawsuit That Went Too Far. It began in 2021 when the Mexican government sued major American gun manufacturers, not for illegal sales or violations of U.S. law, but for crimes committed by drug cartels using trafficked firearms. Their target? Companies like Glock, Smith & Wesson, Colt, Ruger, and others. The demand? Over $10 billion in damages. Mexico argued these companies were fueling cartel violence across the border. The lawsuit did not claim the companies broke laws directly. Instead, it blamed them for criminal acts committed by third parties. It sought to bypass U.S. protections by using foreign harm as a legal hook. This bold legal attack challenged not only business liability, but the very core of Second Amendment protections. At stake was whether U.S. gun makers could be held accountable for crimes they didn't commit, based on politics in another country. Chapter 2. The federal law that blocked the case. At the heart of the defense was a powerful shield passed by Congress in 2005, known as the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, PLCAA. This law protects firearm manufacturers and sellers from lawsuits when guns are misused. The principle is simple. If the sale was legal, you can't be sued for what someone else does with the product. It's like trying to sue Ford because someone crashed their car. PLCAA prevents liability for third-party criminal use of firearms. It applies as long as the manufacturer or seller followed all laws during the sale. The law was created to stop backdoor attacks on gun rights through the courts. A district court used PLCAA to dismiss Mexico's case. But the case didn't die there. Mexico appealed, determined to find a way to punish U.S. gun companies for cartel crimes. But the case didn't die there. Mexico appealed, determined to find a way to punish U.S. gun companies for cartel crimes. Eventually, that appeal brought the issue all the way to the Supreme Court and triggered a historic response. Chapter 3. The Supreme Court delivers a 9-0 blow. In June 2025, the U.S. Supreme Court issued its verdict. All 9 justices, liberal and conservative alike, stood united. They ruled that foreign governments cannot use American courts to hold U.S. companies liable for crimes committed abroad. But that was just the beginning. The court affirmed that Mexico's claims could not override U.S. law. It reinforced PLCAA as a valid legal shield for lawful gun makers. The justices unanimously rejected the idea of third-party liability in this context. The ruling emphasized the sovereignty of American legal protections. This wasn't just a win for the gun industry, it was a constitutional affirmation. And buried deep inside the decision was a sentence that would spark legal battles across the country. Chapter 4. The sentence that changed everything. Justice Elena Kagan, writing for the court, included a pivotal observation. She noted that firearms like the AR-15 are widely legal and commonly owned by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes. That single line transformed a business ruling into a constitutional precedent. Because under Second Amendment law, those words carry enormous weight. The court's opinion directly referenced the common ownership of AR-15s. Common use is a central test in Second Amendment cases under Heller and Bruin. Weapons in common lawful use cannot be banned by governments. This sentence functioned as a judicial finding with real legal impact. The AR-15, long vilified in political rhetoric, was now recognized by the highest court as protected. The AR-15, long vilified in political rhetoric, was now recognized by the highest court as protected, and that recognition cracked the legal foundation beneath every state-level assault weapon ban in the nation. Chapter 5. Why Common Use shields the AR-15. To fully grasp the power of that sentence, you have to understand 2 key Supreme Court rulings. District of Columbia versus Heller, 2008, and NYSRPA versus Bruin, 2022. Both decisions established that firearms in common use for lawful purposes are protected under the Second Amendment. That protection isn't based on popularity, it's rooted in constitutional law. Heller and Bruin set the precedent that bans cannot apply to commonly owned weapons. As of 2025, over 24.4 million AR-style rifles are in civilian hands in the U.S. These rifles are widely used for sport, defense, and hunting, all lawful purposes. That makes them constitutionally protected beyond dispute. Justice Kagan's sentence was not a passing comment, it was a legal anchor, and it gives gun rights attorneys across the country the ammunition they need to challenge and overturn sweeping firearm bans. Chapter 6. Nationwide Impact. Now in motion, the Supreme Court's ruling didn't just shake California, it's triggering challenges from coast to coast. 10 states and Washington, D.C. still enforce sweeping bans on rifles now reaffirmed as legal by the highest court. And with this precedent set, the legal tide is beginning to turn against them all. The numbers don't lie, and the courts are starting to notice. Illinois' 2023 ban impacts over 2.4 million lawful gun owners. In New York, fewer than 15% have complied with the SAFE Act registration. Connecticut has over 370,000 affected rifles, but just 50,000 were registered. These stats prove massive civil resistance to state-level bans. This growing disconnect between citizens and lawmakers is now backed by a powerful legal foundation. Federal judges are re-examining these laws not as settled doctrine, but as crumbling policies built on weak legal ground. Chapter 7. What happens next? The legal system isn't waiting. Lawsuits are being filed, revived, and accelerated across the country. From Illinois to New Jersey, courts are now being forced to reconcile their bans with the Supreme Court's clear stance. And this time, gun owners have the strongest weapon they've ever had, binding constitutional language. The fight is entering a new phase, and momentum is shifting fast. Legal teams are citing the 9-0 ruling in newly filed Second Amendment cases. Organizations like the Firearms Policy Coalition and GOA are funding challenges. Judges have clearer direction than ever from the nation's highest authority. The phrase commonly owned and lawful use is becoming the new legal standard. The AR-15 is no longer just a cultural symbol or political debate topic. It now holds confirmed legal protection that is reshaping the entire gun rights landscape across America. Chapter 8. The Collapse of Opposition Arguments. While pro-2A attorneys gain traction, anti-gun narratives are losing legal credibility. Judges defending bans are now being questioned on outdated, emotional arguments that no longer stand up to scrutiny. Many courts are struggling to justify bans with terms like dangerous or military style. But none of those phrases override constitutional protection. Appeals courts have floated theories that contradict the Second Amendment. Some judges confuse semi-automatics with machine guns in open court. Others misname firearms or reference appearance-based bans with no legal merit. The inconsistency is exposing a lack of legal clarity and judicial bias. As the gap between emotional rhetoric and constitutional law widens, state-level bans are becoming harder to defend. The law is no longer on the side of restriction. It's swinging back toward restoration of rights. Chapter 9. How this impacts you directly. For millions of Americans, this isn't just a courtroom battle. It's a real change in how your firearms are protected. Whether you live in a restrictive state or a free one, the ruling resets the legal clock on bans and future proposals. It gives gun owners legal standing in courtrooms where they were once dismissed. And it could open the door to reversing decades of overreach. You may soon see registration requirements overturned in your state. Legal possession of AR-style rifles is more defensible now than ever before. Suppressor and magazine bans could fall under similar legal logic. Future lawsuits may use this decision to challenge waiting periods and permitting. The bottom line is this: the ruling does not just protect gun makers. It puts real legal weight behind your right to own what the media calls assault weapons. Chapter 10. A legal blueprint for future wins. This 9-0 ruling is more than a victory. It is a framework for legal success going forward. It gives attorneys the roadmap to challenge anti-gun laws on a constitutional level, not just a policy level. Instead of emotional appeals or political compromise, future cases can start with one sentence. AR-15s are lawful, commonly owned, and protected. Courts are now forced to consider the Supreme Court's binding language. Legal teams can quote this decision in every new state-level challenge. It undermines the foundation of all future assault weapon proposals. This case will be studied for decades as the turning point for Second Amendment law. With this precedent in hand, the fight is no longer defensive. It's proactive, strategic, and rooted in clear legal authority that cannot be ignored. The fight has just begun. This ruling confirms what millions of law-abiding Americans already knew. The Second Amendment protects real tools of defense, not just old relics or hunting rifles. And now, with the highest court in the land on record, the AR-15 has become more than legal. It is untouchable. But this is just the beginning of a much larger legal revolution. At Survival Lawline, we will be tracking every major case, every new challenge, and every victory ahead. If you value your rights and want to stay informed, protected, and ready, subscribe to the channel right now. Drop a comment below. Do you think this is the end of assault weapon bans or the beginning of something even bigger? Either way, we'll be right here covering it.